Well, they say what you give, you get back. So let's find out.
Hello, Harold.
Yeah. Okay, we're on Gimel, I think.
We're on Gimel. Supposed to be very complicated stuff.
I did a little bit of homework beforehand, so I kind of get it.
Kind of get it?
I kind of get it. Yeah, it's gonna be my job. This is my what I have to be doing when the base of Mikdash is back. I'm gonna figure these things out.
Well, you let me know. I'll be right there. I'll be right
You'll
by
be
your
right with
side.
me. Yeah.
I'll be right at your side.
Can I bring a cheat sheet? That's what I need to know. Can I bring a cheat sheet?
It'd be better just bring Ernie.
Oh, yeah, bring her. I'll have a AirPod in my ear. He'll
All
tell me
right,
what to do.
right.
Hey, Ernie.
I have the volume 20, so they
Oh,
came.
good.
We're on Menachos Gimel. Amri, so we talked about that Rav Shimon held that if you do a mincha machvas with intention to do minchas marchesha, since the processes in the two minchas are different, so you can see clearly that one is not this, that they're different. So the mincha is okay because you can see that it turns out to be either a flat mincha. So that's what it is, regardless of his intention. Then we asked, well, when you do a chatas and an ola, why don't, if you have in mind the intention of a chatas, but you see that the processing is as an ola. So Amri Dilma Mitsu de Basrazo, but first by chatas you sprinkle, then you squeeze. Now the squeezing is not necessary, even if you didn't do it. The korban is still good. Wherever you do it, whether it's above or below, so that it's not a absolute delineation as to what korban you're bringing. So chatas ha'of shehiz adama lamata l'shem ha'olas ha'of. Chatas ha'of that you sprinkled its blood below the line, and you have in mind an ola. Tirat said it should work. You have sprinkled below the line, that's where a chatas is. So who cares that you had a machshava for an ola? It should be the iola sahofi lamala avavitle. The bird ola sprinkled above, he did it below. Umitzu avavitle would have squeezed. Achanami, vishiram nacha is doimelis zvachin kamar. Rav Shimon's ruling is only because a mincha is not like an animal sacrifice, but lizvachim v'lo la'oifos. But they're not comparable to oifos, because by an oifos as well, you could be maratza chatas even if you had in mind the o. Normally, a chatas and a noshav have to be shechted in the north. You shechted them in the north, but you had in mind kochim kalim. Well, let the chatas and the noshav be liratzu, because maseh and moichichan aleim the kochim in it. You are actually slaughtering in the north, where only kochim are slaughtered. The kochim b'darma avidle. You could shech kochim in the south. By doing it in the north, it seems to prove that you're dealing with kochim no matter what your kavana is. It doesn't say you can't shecht kochim kalim in the north. It says as well you can shecht it in the south. It doesn't say you can't do it in the north. This not shchitas b'chol makom bazar. Kochim kalim can be shlechted anywhere, so that's not a kash. You took an animal which is supposed to be kochim kalim. You shechted them in the south, and you had in mind kochim. Let it be okay. Let it be maratza for kochim kalim liratzu, because masei and mochich alim the kochim kalim, because you're not allowed to shecht kochim kalim in the south. You only do it in the north. Kochim mitzvah navavidle. Amre, no, it could be kochim ninu. He committed an aveir and he shechted in the south, but he still wanted it to be kochim. Well, if that's the way you're going to answer, Iochi, we said before, machvas l'shem marcheshes nami. We said before Reb Shimon would matir that, but maybe Hadika comments on the marcheshes. Omar, he's doing it. He did the kmitz l'shem marcheshes, and haibim marcheshes nother. He made the vow to bring a marcheshes. The fact that he's bringing it in a kli for a machvas, it's really a marcheshes. But ma'avru da'avar, he's making a veira and bringing it in the wrong kli. But similar to the way we tried to explain above. Awesome. Kinabi b'marcheshes nodar. If he made a vow to bring a marcheshes, if you bring him in the griddle, the kli determines the mincha. Kidit not. We don't care what you say; it's what you do. Behavi b'marcheshes, and you bring it in a marcheshes pan, or you vow to marcheshes, but behavi b'machvas, mashehevi hevi. The mincha is what the kli you brought. V'dei nidra lo yotze, just didn't mekayim his neder. V'dilma omar zu, maybe kiditnan zu lahavi b'machvas. This mincha is going to be brought in a machvas. V'hevi b'marcheshes. Or he said zu b'marcheshes, v'hevi b'machvas, or is a psula. Why here Reb Shimon didn't say it has to do, just look at what action he did and let it be kosher. So the Rabban and Achanami, according to the way the rabbis learn, the fact whatever the Kohen made a vow is okay. But the Reb Shimon, his neder was not correct. Even though I'm a Rabbi Shimon, afidei nidro yatsa, because Reb Shimon holds even his neder is fulfilled. So what you the kli is not what determines the kind of mincha. It is your vow. V'lo yishno amar zu, v'lo yishno amar alai. It makes a difference what language you use. Ela me'ata oile sheshochet l'shem chatas teratza. You have a behema, and you vowed an ola, you shechted it l'shem chatas. It should be okay. You can see the high zach of Einike, and the ola has to be a male, and chatas is a female. Well, this animal was clearly a male, so it's clearly an ola. So kiven dikers seir nasi. the Nasi, when he brings a chatas, he brings a male goat. The Zachar hu lo yadiyah. Then it's not clear that whatever he vowed was not correct. But sorry, Nasi is not a chatas yachid. So what if the Kohen said chatas yachid? V'su chatas yachid sheshachlu l'shem oila teratza. A private chatas, which should be a female, which you shechted l'shem oila, but since you're shechting a female, chatas nekev oila zachar, we should know what it is. Gemara answers mechsaya ba'ali. We don't know what gender it is, because the sheep has a tail which covers the genitalia. We don't know what it is. That's a sheep. What about Isis Seira Michael? A goat doesn't have that tail. They're shechting and olul shem chatas. We're going to see that what he vowed was false. However, the Gemara answers, people were not expert at telling the difference between male and female animals. So it's not clear that the vow, that he was telling a lie when he made the vow. Pesach sheshachlu shem Hashem l'ratzei. A Pesach has to be 1 year old, and Hashem is 2 years old. So we see clearly what kind of animal it is. So it should be meratzeh, because it's an obvious lie. The Hai ben Shana, Hai ben Shtayim. Kivin dik Hashem Nazir Hashem Etzora. These types of Hashams were 1 year old, lo psikalei. So it's not clear that he made a false statement. Amr l'shum Hashem gzelos l'shum Hashem me'ilos. If he said I'm shechting the Pesach l'shem Hashem for a gezel, Hashem me'ilah, that's clearly got to be an animal in the second year. Pesach is 1 year. So you have a kasha Michael Meimer. The Su, Hashem gzelos Hashem me'ilah sheshachtu l'shem Pesach l'rotzu. If you shechted the Hashem and have for kavana for a Pesach, everyone's going to know it's a lie. The Pesach ben Shana v'ani ben Shtei Shani. Again, the Gemara answers Ela ben Shana ben Shtayim lavadai to inshi. People were not expert at determining clearly by looking at the animal whether it was 1 year old or not, or 2. Deike ben Shana de Mexico ben Shtayim. Viki ben Shtayim de Mexico ben Shana. There's some 2 year olds that look like 1 and vice versa. Sa'ir sheshachtu l'shem Hashem. If you shechted a goat, now an Hashem has to be a ram, not a goat. So it should be meratzeh. Da'ai tzemer v'ai seir. Hashem is a sheep. Sor is a goat. One has wool, the other has hair. People will think it's a type of a ram, like a black ram. What about egel upar? If you take a calf or a cow and you shecht it in the name of a Pesach Hashem, well, it should work because we know clearly there are different kinds of animals. The egel upar b'Pesach Hashem leka. There is no calf or bull that's brought as a Pesach or an Hashem. More says Chanami. Here, Reb Shimon would say that his declaration as to what korban is didn't mean anything. And we see exactly how the animal was processed. That's the kind of korban it is. Now, Reb Shimon had made a statement that zvachim don't operate like a mincha. Well, here it operates like a mincha. So the Gemara says, "My zvachim rav zvachim." The majority of korbanos you can't get away with it. There's this case that we just brought, parve egel by Pesach or Rosham, that it would work like Reb Shimon. We brought 2 baraises that if a mincha was brought with the wrong intention, shelo lishma, one baraisa said it's kosher because we look at its processing. One baraisa said it's not. So how do we reconcile the 2 baraises? Rava Omar, loy kasha, kan bekoimetz mincha l'shum mincha. Where the mincha is okay, he did kmitza on a mincha, but he had in mind another mincha. For example, mincha machvas, he had in mind minchas marcheshes. That's okay. Kan bekoimitz mincha l'shum zevach. But if he did the kmitz and he had in mind a shlomim, then it would not be good. Because mincha l'shum mincha, it's okay because it says zos Torah mincha. Torah achas l'chol hamnachos. There's one rule for all menachos. Mincha l'shum zevach, it says zos Torah mincha v'zevach loksiv. So Rava says it's based on psukim. Afraid to Gemara, but Reb Shimon didn't say the reason it's okay because of the pasuk. He gave us the reason that you can't have a machshava that it's a marcheshes when you're actually doing the processing, which looks like a machvas. You know that it's a machvas, but he didn't say that it has to do with psukim. So hachi kamer, this is how Rava would explain it. Afal gav the machshava to lumin karihi. We see his machshava is not noticeable because he's actually doing a process that's different than his machshava. And technically, tiposim, if you were just using svara, we would say the mincha is not good. But you have a posuk, zos tersa mincha, torachas l'chol hamnachos. What did he mean when he said umayav bezvachim eino kain? But that this same svara doesn't work by animal korbanos because afagav the shchita achas lekulon. There's one method of shchita for all the animals, but that's not the reason. It's because zos tersa mincha v'zevach loksi. If it would have said zos tersa zevach, we would have said it's okay. Since it didn't say that in the pasuk, we say it's pasuk. Elameyata. So if it's based on this zos toras hamincha or toras hazevach, what about? We know that if you eat chaylev b'shogeg, you have to bring a korban chatas. If you eat dam, you have to bring a korban chatas. So let's say you designated a chatas for the aver of eating chaylev, and you shechted it, and you had in mind a chatas for dam, or l'shum chatas avodas kechavim, or l'shum chatas nazir, or l'shum chatas mitzora. Tehei kshero saratzeh. I would think it doesn't make a difference what your intention is. The Amar Achmana zois Torah sachatas, Torah achas l'chol chatos, just like we said by a mincha. Zois Torah mincha. We said we don't care what your intention is. There's one din. It should be the same thing by a chatas. So the Gemara says, "Ein chanami, Reb Shimon chanami." According to Reb Shimon, the chatas would be okay. The Rabbanon, if you had a different type of chatas in mind, or l'shem chatas over his kechavim, ksheira, that would work because they're all chatos for averis. But l'shem chatas nazir, that would not work, or l'shem chatas mitzor psula, because there are other korbanos brought with those, like oilos, dani oilos badayunim. People will think that you're shechting it l'shem olah, that we can't have. He learned that all these cases of a chatas shaloli shmaz is puzzle, like all the rabbanon. We don't paskin like Reb Shimon. We paskin like the rabbanon that if you shech the chatas shaloli shmaz, it's invalid. Because v'shachat osa l'chatas, l'shem osa chatas. It has to be for that specific chatas and not for a different aver. Okay. Rav Ashi Omar, he gives a different reconciliation between the two brises of Rab Shimon, where one brisa said that if you offer a mincha shelo lishma, it's okay, and the other which said it's not okay. Loi kasha, han bekoimitz machvas l'shum marcheshes. He did the kmitz on a machvas as if it should be a marcheshes. Kan bekoimetz minchas machvas l'shum minchas marcheshes. The other Bryce is dealing with kmitza on a mincha v'machvas, for a mincha marcheshes, not machvas and marcheshes without the word mincha. Machvas l'shum marcheshes, and he didn't say anything about mincha. B'monaka chumachashi. He is thinking about the type of kli that he's bringing the mincha in. Umachshava b'mona loy posim. Having the wrong kli in mind doesn't cause the korban to be possible. But minchas machvas l'shum minchas marcheshes, b'mincha the possible machshava kumachashi. That by having the improper thought in the mincha itself will be a psul. Frag the Gemara, that Baraisa says why is it okay? We said because the various actions of a marcheshes is different than the actions of a machvas. It has nothing to do with what we just said. So hachikom. Afagav de machshavet leminker. We see clearly that his statement is not true. If he's bringing a machvas and does a marcheshes, it's not consistent. And technically it should be tiposa. But because he had a machshava regarding the kli alone, not the mincha, we say it's okay. And what do we mean that it doesn't apply by animals? That avagav the shchita achas lekulan. There's only one way to shecht animals, or zrika achas lekulan, kabbalah achas lekulan. Bezvicha the pasla be machshava kumachashet. There we're clearly having a machshava in the animal. This is shlamim should be offered for an olah. It had nothing to do with the keli. However, Amalei Ravacha Beit Rav Ravashi. What about if he makes a statement chareva mishum blula, a dry mincha for a oily mincha? Amai Amar Rab Shimon. But Rab Shimon there also said it would be kosher. But charev and a blula is clearly talking about the mincha itself. The way Ravashi answered, it should also be possible. Amar leilishum bila ba'alma. He's not talking about a mincha itself. He's talking about mixtures in general. Well, ihachi l'shum shlamim nami. When you want to bring an olah, but you have in mind there should be a shlamim, maybe he's not talking about korbanos at all. Maybe l'shum shlamim ba'alma, shalom in the world. He's bringing it for peace. And just like we said, if you bring it for a kli, there's no machshav in the kli, maybe there should be no invalidating machshava regarding oila l'shem shlamim. The Gemara says hachi hash. There's no comparison. Hasam zevach gufa ikri shlamim. The shlamim refers to a specific korban. Tichsiv makriv is dama shlamim. Hazorik is dama shlamim. So the Kohen is talking about a korban. Hacha mincha gufa meikri blula. Using the word blula, that doesn't mean you're talking about a mincha. There's a lot of things that could be balul, that could be mixed up. It says v'chol minchas blula v'Hashem enksi. It's a mincha blula, but plain blula doesn't have to necessarily refer to a mincha. So blula b'Hashem ikri, but blula stama lo ikri. It's not called just blula. So chareva and thinking about blula is like a kli, and that's why it's okay. The Gemara then tells us we had three shitas to explain the contradictory barises: Rabba, Rava, and Ravashi. Kula karabba lo yamri. They all didn't say. How did Rabba do it? One brisa was you had in mind different korban, right? An olah for shlamim. The other had a different owner, Reuven for Shimon. How did Rabba Machshav de Minkra pas Rachmana? Rabbi said that if you make a declaration that you see is clearly not correct, is going to be okay. But the Torah says that if you have a machshava that is an invalidating type of machshava, that the Torah forbade. Kirava lo amri, because v'zos Torah lo mashmalu. They didn't follow this gzeres hakosov of zos chukas amincha. Kiravashi lo amri mishum kushid Ravacha Brei Rava. Ravacha Brei Rava asked that question about the charev and the belula. So each one preferred their own answer as opposed to going with the others. However, milsa de pshita le rabba l'hai gisa, ula rava l'hai gisa, that which was simple to Rabba and Rava, maboy le Rav Shai, was problematic for Rav Shai. The boy Rav Shai, the army lo boy mine Rav Shai Ravasi. Min chalashum zavach, you perform a certain kmitza or hoilacha, whatever avoda for the mincha, but you have in mind a certain animal, maliyam Rab Shimon. What would Rab Shimon say in that day? Okay, tomorrow, we will learn at 3:00. Menachos Dalet. The Motzei Shabbos we'll learn at 7:00. Menachos, and 8:00 for Esther. I have volume 20, so everyone's invited next Tuesday to my home. We'll do it in person if those who want to come, and otherwise I'll try to get this form to everybody in a different way, whatever's easier for them.
Right.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you very much.